Does that work for you?
You travel everywhere with your Clorox bottle.
And then can you just stand there for 1 sec so I can see how your body works?
Hello. Good? All right. What are you doing? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Vu. I am the Registrar of Voters. Let me just say that I have heard this election as being described as unprecedented. But let me also say that it's uncharted for San Diego County for a number of different reasons. And not only is it because we sent every voter a mail ballot in this upcoming election, it's because the in-person experience has also changed. We're standing here at the Mira Mesa Recreation Center, where it's one of 235 locations throughout the entire county that is currently setting up before we open up for a 4-day period for the very first time in any San Diego County elections, 235 super polling locations that will be opening up tomorrow on October 31st and will remain open all the way through November 3rd until the polls close at 8 p.m. Now, what this consists of is over 3,600 poll workers that have been trained and are setting up all throughout the entire county at 235 sites, their respective locations, to be ready for the polling places to be open tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, when they do open, the hours of operations on October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd, will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And these are for any individuals who wish to vote or need to vote at any one of the 235 super polling locations that will be open. Now, what won't change is on election day is that we will have all of these respective locations open again starting at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is the normal and a traditional time that polling locations generally open, is on election day for a 13-hour window. Let me just say that it's taken months to prepare for this upcoming election, and we've had to pivot on a dime when it comes down to the preparations of this election due to the pandemic, and all of this is in response to the pandemic itself. Right now, we have nearly 1 million mail ballots that have been returned back to our office, but we know that there are many voters that are out there that still need to turn in their mail ballot, may have not received their mail ballot, or may have made a mistake on their respective mail ballot and need a replacement. Well, any one of the 235 super polling locations will be open for voters. And there are 6 recommendations that we are giving to every single registered voter that has not cast their mail ballot and needs to still vote. First, our first recommendation, of course, if you have your mail ballot in hand, return it back to any one of the 126 mail ballot drop-off locations that we have currently open throughout the entire county. These locations are separate and apart from the 235 super polling locations that we have out there. If you're planning on going in person to vote, the experience is definitely going to be different. What we're asking voters, because there is a pandemic, is to vote early. Vote on October 31st or November 1st or November 2nd. That way it reduces the total number of people that will be going to a super polling location on Election Day, November 3rd, avoiding crowds as well as long lines because of the confluences of individuals, because it's a presidential election, and because of the pandemic and the need for social distancing. Also, if you're planning on voting in person, mark your sample ballot in advance. We have sent out every voter a sample ballot and voter information pamphlet. If you did not receive it, print it online. You can find one of your 842 types of the sample ballot pamphlet for this upcoming election online, and you want to look up your specific ballot type in your sample ballot for you to pre-mark, and then once you get to a polling location, you can transfer those votes onto your official ballot so it's seamless, efficient for the next voter behind you. Third, go to your assigned polling location. Not only did we send every voter their sample ballot and voter information pamphlet, but on the back side of that is your assigned polling location. Every voter of the 1.95 million registered voters, which is a historic record number for this upcoming election, has been assigned to one of those 235 super polling locations. Again, we want voters to be distributed across the 235 sites across the 4 days of active voting that can occur. Fourth, bring your mask and make sure you wear it. Now, if you forget your mask, we will have a supply of masks here at any one of the 235 super polling locations that are out there. Fifth, in terms of our recommendation, is make sure that you are socially distanced once you get here. And we will absolutely go through the voter flow of an individual coming on site to any one of our super polling locations, having them sanitized before they enter the voting area. And then the final and probably the most important recommendation I can give is make sure you bring patience. There's been a number of confluences of events that have transpired throughout the entire country. There's been concerns about voter intimidation. There's been concerns about the presidential race. There's been concerns about the pandemic, about how this will all come together. Let me just say that voters out there, the community on whole, have coalesced around our Vote Safer San Diego campaign. That's why we've received nearly 1 million mail ballots back, is because they've heeded our call and warnings to socially distance, to vote safely, and that's voting their mail ballots, getting back to our office. But if you're planning on voting here at any one of the 235 locations, including the Mira Mesa Recreation Center, we want you to do it safely, but also bring that level of patience, because if there is a large turnout, and we're expecting hundreds of thousands of individuals across those 4 days to get to one of these 235 respective locations, and if there is a long line, make sure that you are patient. Similar to how you've actively been patient at any other locations that you've traveled to, whether that's your coffee, whether that's Costco, same thing when it comes down to here at our 235 super polling locations that is out there. Know that we have purchased not only to protect our poll workers, but to protect voters as well, a huge amount of personal protective equipment, from 300,000 masks to over 800,000 gloves to 12,000 bottles of hand sanitizer bottles to 500 hand sanitizer dispensing as you enter as well as exit any of the respective locations. Certainly we purchased 21 pallets of plexiglass. Know that the experience for our voters is not one check-in station, but 7 check-in stations. Not only is it 4 poll workers, it's now going to be 15 poll workers. Not only is it going to be 300 square feet in space, it's going to be on average 2,000 square feet in space. Again, all of this was thoughtfully thought through, not only between the Registrar of Voters Office, but also our public health officials to keep everyone safe. And so voters who are planning on coming in person can do their part and make sure that you go to your assigned location, make sure you contemplate going across those 4-day period, and make sure that you're prepared once you get to your respective polling location. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Are you doing anything to prepare for the possibility of voter intimidation or violence at any
We have. We are closely working with our law enforcement agencies, and not just our sheriff officers, but all of the allied agencies. The sheriff is coordinating with all of the allied law enforcement agencies throughout the entire county. Let me just say that we are also closely working with the FBI on this, but they are a measure of last resort. Our poll workers, our site managers have been trained. Our site managers has been trained for over a week, as well as our poll workers for not just a 2-day period or 2-hour period, but a 2-day period on things like de-escalation techniques. If we see that there is any level of campaigning or electioneering that's happening within 100 feet of our polling locations, our site managers will be out there asking them to get as far as 100 feet from their respective polling locations to not ensure that a voter has the ability to get inside a polling location without any level of interference, intimidation, or rhetoric. Again, a polling location is a sanctuary for voters. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld that there is a right of a voter to retire inside their polling locations free of intimidation, free of interference, as well as free from any level of rhetoric. When these polling locations open, and that comes under the umbrella of the Registrar of Voters, and that umbrella includes the voters themselves of being able to vote freely their selections without any level of interference in that process. Well, let me go ahead if there are no other questions. Oh, yes. If a person cannot wear a mask because they have medical conditions or they refuse to wear a mask, that individual, we will actually have line managers to identify that. They will approach the individual to offer a mask, and if it's one of these specific situations, what we will do is have that voter vote outside of the actual voting area. Socially distance outside the voting area. Well, let me kind of go step through the actual process itself in terms of every single location and use Mira Mesa as an example of that process. Thank you. I should mention one other thing is that every single one of our super polling locations that are out there has a site-specific plan. Okay? That means that every single one of these locations, including the Mira Mesa, has a location that has been laid out for them in terms of all of our voting booths, where the check-in station should be, measuring out the 6 feet from voting booth to check-in stations, from voting booth to voting booth. That way, it makes sure that we can make sure that every voter that comes here is safe and healthy environment for them to vote. And this is just a listing that we have created, and there are 235 sets of these across all of our respective locations that are out there. Not only does it give you the protocols in place and outlines what those protocols are, the cleaning protocols, the donning and doffing of gloves, the setup of the actual location itself, and the cleansing and the sanitizing aspect of it, but it also has the actual layout of the room itself. And so we surveyed every single one of these respective locations to make sure that we laid it out to give the site manager, to give the facility owner a sense of how we are keeping everyone safe and the poll owners themselves a safe environment after we leave the site itself. Okay. And so this contains every single one of those locations. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the flow.
just clip this to your jacket really quick. And do you have an inside pocket by any chance? All right, let me just drop that in there. And it's clean, by the way.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You are welcome.
So you want to follow me then? We'll start with this one. We only want to show you the electronic What we plan on doing is before a person actually comes in, they're going to be, we'll have a line manager here. And once we have the line manager, that line manager and a greeter will check in the individuals by hand sanitizing the individual and offering that, and also offering a gloves for them to fill out. They'll fill out the various applications similar to what's happening at the Registrar Voters Office. And once all of that's been done, they will walk inside the actual voting area here and check in. As you can see here, we will have our poll workers on this side as we're setting up, and hand sanitizing as well as the wipes. And then they will check in the individuals. Now, for the very first time, we use what is known as electronic poll books. Normally, a person fills out a paper voter roster, and that's how it's done. And there's generally one. But as you can see here, we will have 7 check-in stations to expand and make sure that the voter flow is much more efficient. Once the voter shows up towards the poll worker, they'll check in that voter. They will look them up on the electronic poll book. And that electronic poll book actually allows us to see the disposition, the status of their mail ballot across the entire county. So if a voter shows up and they say that they had not voted yet, we'll find out whether or not their mail ballot has been returned. If it has not been returned, we actually have the ability to suspend their mail ballot and offer them a polling place ballot. That's for the very first time. Normally, if a person does not have their mail ballot with them, they would have to vote provisionally. In this respective case, they do not have to vote provisionally any longer because we have the ability to suspend the originally issued mail ballot. After that occurs, they'll be able to, if they show up at their assigned polling locations, we will have pre-printed paper ballots for them. And once they receive that pre-printed paper ballot and sign into the electronic roster, that stylus as well as the electronic poll book will be sanitized. And then the voter is going to be able to go inside the voting booth here, cast their respective votes, and then once that's done, is finished, they will be exiting the respective location where there will be a ballot box and drop in the ballot box before they exit, and also be offered the ability to sanitize as well. Now, that's if a person shows up at the assigned polling location. If a person does not go to their assigned polling location, they will be offered to vote on our ballot marking device, as well as voters with disabilities. So let's go over there really quickly. So it's going to be, for the most part, the same process, except for there won't be pre-printed paper ballots for them. What there will be is they will be marking their selections on one of 7 ballot marking devices. Generally, there's only one ballot marking device at a traditional neighborhood polling place. And in this respective case, they will insert their smart card. They will make their respective selection on screen. It'll print out their respective paper ballot. They will verify it, and then again exit and drop their ballot inside the ballot box. And that will.
What's their smart card?
The smart card activates their ballot because in this upcoming election there are 842 types of the ballot. Again, every voter gets one of those 842 types. But when you think about it, we have to also support 5 languages. So these ballot marking devices contain 4,210 variations of the ballot, depending where the voter lives. And so our electronic poll books lets us know where they live and activates the card should they need to vote on a ballot marking device. Now, there are a couple of situations here. We know that individuals that are voters with disabilities need to potentially vote in person. We know that individuals that didn't receive their mail ballot may need to vote in person. We know that individuals that make a mistake on their mail ballot and need to get a new fresh ballot may need to vote in person. Also, there are going to be individuals that are not registered to vote but want to still participate in the election, and they still can. And those individuals can come in person, register, and then vote. That's called conditional voter registration. And then the fifth reason why a person may want to come in-person vote is because they absolutely want that experience. And so that is okay. We just want to make sure that we reserve the individuals that want or need to vote in person to do so, while those that already have their mail ballot in hand to drop it off at any one of our mail ballot drop-off locations.
Do you think we'll see the lines that we're seeing around the country?
We have not seen the lines as of yet, and partly the reason why is because we sent every single voter a mail ballot. And so we had small little lines at the Registrar Voters Office, but we still expect hundreds of thousands of individuals to still cast a ballot or drop off their respective mail ballots. We could see long lines. That's one of the reasons why we are doing this news conference is because we want to make sure that voters spread themselves across a 4-day period as opposed to a 1-day period. Also, elections are conducted differently across the entire country. And for our county, our state, many locations will be open for a 4-day period to distribute voters across that 4 days. And so that's the call for voters, is to not create long lines. And we're only going to be as good as voters who heed that call to vote early and not necessarily wait all the way up until Election Day to do so. That's it.
How long do you think the whole process will take once somebody gets in?
Once a person comes in, what we're thinking, and part of that process is going to be how many contests are on their ballot. As I mentioned, there are 842 types of the ballot in this upcoming election. There are 196 contests on the ballot, and every voter gets a combination of those 196. And so depending on if you live in the city of San Diego, you may have more contests on that. So overall, I would expect the whole process to take around 10 to 15 minutes per person, but it will be dependent on how prepared the voter is. How informed are they? Are they going to be looking at all the respective measures in advance? Did they vote their sample ballot pamphlet in advance to transfer those votes? So I would say anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes is how long it's going to take, and it could take longer than that, to 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how prepared they are. Okay.
And if there's a really long line at 8 when the polls close, everyone still gets to vote.
That is correct, is that the last person in line at 8 p.m., regardless of how long that line is, will be able to vote.
Are all of these locations indoors or
No, all of them are indoors.
but in gyms like this?
Yep, and gymnasium, all those are public locations, public facilities, 2,000 square feet of space. Yeah.
Oh, got it. So all of them are at least 2,000?
Average is 2,000.
Got
That's
it.
some remote site, they're like
Yeah.
800,
Yeah.
but in remote areas, but for the most part, it's about 2,000 on average.
Do you think it's a public practice?
I'm not quite sure. Maybe Suzanne, do you have any issues with being on camera? Okay.
Can I have a quick interview? That's why you're doing this. Thank you.